We've been told that money doesn't buy happiness, but let's be honest. We know that money can make life a whole lot easier. And I didn't realize how much it was affecting my peace until I realized how much it was taking away from me. Hi, my name is Ashley Marina. I am your host of the Ash to Dusk podcast, where we talk about everything in the messy middle of life from entrepreneurship, being a mom, hormones, leadership, all of the things. We talk about it here. And welcome to the podcast. Now, today, before we get started, if you've been around for a minute, you probably feel like you have whiplash because I have been in several different recording studios. Now I'm saying recording studios, but let's be real, we're doing this out of my home. And I am in my new office. Mike, my husband, just laid down new floor. It's awesome, but we still have some finishing things that we need to do, like hanging more curtains and making it more soundproof because right now it's really loud. So I hope as I'm recording this for you, it sounds really good. Now, I also don't have my chair that I'm typically in, so we're just changing some things up a bit. But hey, that's what you know me as. I'm always changing things and trying to get better. So, welcome. Today's conversation is hard for me because I have never had a great relationship with money, if we want to call it that. And I will dive into that a little bit in a moment. But I also know how sensitive this topic is. I know that depending on your religious beliefs, you have a different mindset when it comes to money. If you grew up poor, you're going to have a different mindset on how money can be. And same thing if you grew up never thinking about or having to worry about money, you're going to have a different perspective. So today, I just want you to know my heart, and that is I'm sharing everything out of my perspective, my experience. I am not a financial expert, and I want to make sure I lay that on the table right now. But today's conversation really comes from recently I had done a keynote, and somebody in the audience messaged me later that day and said she was considering divorcing her husband, and she had been a stay-at-home mom for 10 years before she started back to work. And basically, when you're working in a school kitchen, you're not necessarily making enough money to support your family, and most of the time you're working a handful of hours a day versus it being full-time with benefits and a livable salary. So I want to kind of preface like where this conversation was coming from and who's kind of asking. So she said to me, like, how did you do it? She was asking me how I was able to move through my divorce with a single income. And then more recently, this same person messaged me again. Now, this has been, I think, about 8 months since I originally heard from her. And they are going to move forward with the separation. But her whole thing is how do I do it? I don't have the income. I don't have really the job that kind of supports that. Is there a way for help? And let's talk about this for a minute. I really do believe money makes life better. And here's why I know this. There are many moments of my life where I mismanage money at more times than not. And when I was really young as a teenager, I mean, I started with a credit card right away. And I was never content with what I had. And I always spent before money came in because I'm a hustler. And I'm like, oh, I'll just outwork this. I can always just get the money and I know it's going to turn out okay. And I had a terrible way of thinking about money right out of the gate. My parents had been through bankruptcies. My grandparents, although might have been okay with managing what they had, they didn't understand. No one in my family really understood investing or how to let your money make you money. And that is something that I'm actually still learning today. So, more to come on that. But, you know, I've been bankrupt. I have lost a car. I almost lost my home, and a family member helped us get out of that. So, even though we filed bankruptcy, this was, oh my gosh, nearly 15 years ago. But when we filed bankruptcy, we got to keep our home, and a large part, we had a lot of help. And so I want to first say that, like, as we're talking about this whole money piece, is that sometimes you do need help if you can get it. But I'm going to be so honest with you, and this is where this conversation is coming down to. I know too many people, more women than not, but I do know some men But I know too many people who are stuck in really bad situations because they don't have access to their own money. Now, I have an opinion about this coming from somebody who's always worked. So I want you to know this. I have always worked, and I would say that most of my working life, I've been, I want to say like the breadwinner. That doesn't mean I roll in all this money, but that I typically have made, if not the same amount or more than my spouse. And so I don't understand the perspective of not ever having my own money, because I always have. But I do have family and friends who have experiences. And I'm a full believer in you should have your own money. You should. When you're married, should things be combined? Yeah, of course. Like me and Mike, we combine a lot. Like we share a lot of the expenses of just our household. But Mike has his money and I have my money. And I love, Dave Ramsey kind of breaks it down as far as, make a budget and budget it all the way down to zero. And if that means that each spouse gets so much a month, that's how you set it up, but that's their money then. So like once it's divided up, that's your money. And you don't want to be stuck in a situation where you can't get out. Okay. And this is what's happening so much in marriages and with couples is that we end up relying on the other person. We stay home with our family because we believe in those values. And I'm not hating on that. That is awesome. But there should be strong alignment with your partner that, okay, although I'm staying at home, I am also saving us in childcare and packing lunches and all these other things. So part of your salary, I should also have access to that as my own because I'm saving us in that. And I know that, again, this is a touchy subject. And I am kind of, if you can tell, I'm struggling through it a little bit because I am not a financial expert, but I'm just an expert in having had no money, crawling out of the hole so many times, and now building a multi six figure business with a six figure salary and also employing several women on my team. So I at least have an understanding of how to get out of a situation of not having money and having to start over. But where I'm really gaining experience now is how to get my money to make me money. That is where I'm learning. Okay, so here's where I'm going to be your friend and coach you through something, even if you don't want to hear it. And it's just because I care about you this much. It is going to take you to do something drastically different than what you're doing right now to get out. So, for example, if you are trying to get out of a marriage because it's abusive, there is something that you need to get out. Aside from just letting go of the opinions of everybody else, because I promise you there will be many of opinions, you need to set those aside and really focus on how do I start bringing in as much money as I possibly can so that I can support myself. That might mean that you have to pick up a second job. That might mean that you have to change your job as much as you might love it. For me, I have had to work multiple jobs at different points in my life. I've had to go ask for raises, even though I felt super uncomfortable doing it. It was like, if I don't get a raise, I can't stay in this job. And when I say to you that there will be peace on the other side of this, it's because I've been there. I've went from losing everything, having to have people from my church bail us out, friends, family, whoever would be willing to do it. I've been there more than once and I never want to go back. See, like once you get to the other side, you will do anything to never, ever, ever go back there. But the good thing is that if you're already starting at zero and you're completely broke and you're trying to figure out how you're going to pay your bills, is that it can't get much worse than that when it comes to your finances. You can only go up. And so it's a mindset. You have to think of this as like, all right, I can only go up from here. And what do I need to do? It is changing your mindset around money. You're allowed to make money, okay? You are allowed to have money. You are allowed to have abundance of money. I am not telling you this as like you need permission from me. I'm just saying this to you because you need to hear it. And because so many of us have been taught that money is bad, that, it's hard to get to heaven. It's as hard as getting a camel through the eye of a needle. The love and obsession of money that's going to cause you more issues than anything else. But to be able to say, I want to be able to have a lot of money to not only take care of myself and my family and to be able to give to other people and to leave money for my family, there's nothing wrong with that. But we have to first believe that we're allowed to do it. And I think for me, for a long time, money was very taboo to talk about, especially women, because, you know, most of the women in my family have always needed somebody else to take care of them. They've always needed that second income. And most of us, right? Like, that's not even a judgment. That is just the reality of today's world is oftentimes you need two incomes to make it happen. But what I advocate for more than anything is that each partner has their own money. Yes, you could call it like a kitty or a pot of where, everything kind of comes together, but there's got to be a separation. And what you do with that money then is on you, right? So if you just blow your monthly allowance every single month, and I'm calling it an allowance because I've learned that having some sort of a budget, it does matter, okay? And I was never a budget person. But if your budget is $50 a month for yourself and you blow $50 every single month, well then, you know, that's I can't help you there, but start saving some of your money. Start letting go of the things that, okay, maybe I don't need Dunkin' Donuts today. Maybe I don't need to go to the movies or buy something. It was a wake up call for me losing everything and having three small babies and going through a divorce and not being able to afford my bills and getting shut off notices and driving my car to the bank to turn it in so that nobody would see it get repoed out of my driveway. I was so ashamed of that. But to the person who has reached out to me, and really to many of you who are watching, you may not be or have been in a dire situation like I have been or like this person might be in, but you might know somebody who is. And it really does affect the way you show up in the world. And so much of what we talk about on this podcast is how do we show up to be our best self? How do we create the biggest impact for generations to come? How do we begin to believe in ourselves again, that we matter and that we deserve to be happy? I don't know. I just felt like I needed to have this conversation today. And I know it's very different than what you're used to hearing me talk about. It's just I've been there. And when you're struggling with your finances, you're going to struggle to show up and be a good leader at work, to show up for your kiddos or for your spouse, because all you're going to be doing is stressing out over how you're going to pay the bills and when that next paycheck is going to hit your bank account. Because I have had to pull change to put gas in my gas tank. So I want you to know this. If I can give you any insight when it comes to finances, which, like I said, I am not the expert, I just want to share my experience with you. You can only go up from here. You can only go up. Will you be uncomfortable for a couple of years while you have to work multiple jobs and you might have to leave your kids with a family member or a friend so that you can pick up extra hours, or you might have to get a different job doing something you don't love? Yes, you will probably have to do that. In fact, you will have to do that to get out of the situation that you're in. But once you're out, there's so much more freedom. And like I've shared with you before, I am not over here making all of this extra money. I am just making a decent living for the work that I do. But I still am very cognizant about my money and what I'm doing with it and where it's going, because I have so much fear around it still to this day, if I'm being honest, because of what life was like for me when I was 20 years old. So, no, money may not be able to necessarily buy you happiness, but it does make life a heck of a lot easier and way more enjoyable. And let that be a goal for you. It's okay to have money and it's okay to enjoy it, but you have to start with yourself first by saying that you no longer want to keep living the life that you're living. And that if you are with a spouse who is controlling all the money, hear me please loud and clear. It's time to have a conversation. it is time to have a conversation with your spouse to say, this can no longer be. I understand that you might be the primary person bringing home the money, but I also contribute to this household too. And the benefit of me being at home is because we don't have to send our kids to daycare. I'm cleaning the house, I'm cooking, I'm doing things that all would cost money if someone else were to do it. So it's time to have that hard conversation. And hey, if you're single and you're by yourself and you're struggling with finances, it's time to start right now. Right now. We're not kiddos anymore. We have to have that control to say, all right, I know that I am going to have to pay the bills and I need to save for retirement and I have responsibilities. But you just have to make the decision that you're no longer willing to live life the way you've been, that you are ready to step towards your purpose, that you are ready to let go of the things that no longer serve you. You're ready to let go of the behaviors that no longer help you get to the person that you are truly becoming. And money is hard. They don't teach us this in school like they should. Most of our parents and grandparents don't really understand it, at least in my situation. And go educate yourself. You know, Mike and I are setting up plans to meet with financial advisors and all the things because it really is never too late. And although he's 50 and I'm 36, we still have a ways to go and it's time to learn. I don't want to be afraid of money anymore. And I don't want you to be afraid of it either. There's so much more freedom and peace on the other side of being completely broke. And I believe in you and I'm rooting for you. And if you have any financial tips that you want to offer to the community, put them in the chat, put them in the comment section. But until we meet again, my friend, keep your light burning from ash to dust.